Are you serious? Are you serious, folks? You need to just sit down. Sit down and sit down because this is going to be a powerful show today. We've got Stan Deyo with us, and he's just returned from Tanzania of where he found the Garden of Eden. And this was what, maybe a life journey for him, I'm not sure, but let's find out more about the Garden of Eden. Stan, great to have you on the broadcast.
Good to be back in the States and on the broadcast with you, Paul. I hear you've been out of the country too.
I have. I went to India for 10 days, come home for 10 days, and then went to Israel for 12 days. So I'm glad to be home. I'm tired.
I know that feeling.
All right, Stan, this is amazing. I mean, I heard about this, your interview with the Hagmans a couple nights ago, and the fact that you went to see if this was the Garden of Eden. So tell us a little bit about why you felt this had a possibility.
Well, back in 1989, I think it was, I started looking for the Garden of Eden before we had Google Earth and various things that would help us nail it down. And I did write a book, The Vindicator Scrolls, mentioning that I thought it might be in Northeast Africa at Djibouti, in that area there. But until 2014, I wasn't able to pin it down. And I used all the clues in the Bible about the descriptors of the Garden of Eden, even that Satan walked in its hot stones of Eden and near the mountain of God. So I found not only the Garden of Eden, but the mountain of God. It is still called the mountain of God by the natives after 3,400 years there in Tanzania. Anyway, to accomplish the finding, the locating of the Garden of Eden, I had to put the earth back to conditions that it would have been in the time of the Garden of Eden, which would have been pre-flood. Now, there are two schools of thought about this, but I am in the school of thought that says that we have a young universe, young earth, and that we have an earth that is now a third bigger than it was before the flood. It's called catastrophism in physics or astronomy. Again, there are those that are talking about gradual millions of years processes on the earth, and short-termers like me who say that catastrophic events happen and suddenly. Now, when I put everything back together again, I was able to trace the four rivers that ran between the continents that are continents today, but they were part of a landmass. And they all came from an area there at Djibouti, except for one that went down into southeast Tanzania. But the four rivers came out of one spot. I was able to trace the spot. And last month, I was able to stand and put my hand in the waters that fed the Garden of Eden, the spring that came up. It's just an incredible feeling. But anyway, I needed to find the Garden of Eden to share with people that the Bible is history. It really is not a myth or fable. And many religions of the earth talk about the creation of man and the Adam and Eve story in various descriptors. So I knew it was important for the entire world and for all the major philosophies and religions that refer to that to find the place if it was physically here. And it was, and it is today. Now, the waters that came out of there had to be traveling so fast and with such force that they would go around whole countries. And it wasn't little, 50-acre countries and stuff like in the Middle East. This had to be something that went around large countries that were, settled in the time of Moses. They knew where the country famous for its gold was and various other things like that. So putting it all back together like that, these rivers all led to a spot at about 10,000 feet altitude in the northern plateau of the Ngoro Plateau.
Wait a minute. So what you're saying is, and I mean, we can look right in the book of Genesis chapter 2, and it tells you about the four rivers that came out of the Garden of Eden. So I know geographically you were studying that to be sure that matched up. But the thing is, you just brought up a great point. This was God's way of sending the rivers had to have force so that the water could really flow throughout the land. So if you have springs, just unbelievable springs of fresh, beautiful water, 10,000 feet in the air, the rivers are gonna flow down with some force and pressure to reach out. So I never even thought about that.
The Catholic Church, or the scholars of the Catholic Church in the time of Christopher Columbus in the 1400s, they thought that the Garden of Eden had to be on a high place, like a high mountain ridge, because of the water flow and because it had to resist the flood destruction because it wasn't part of the judgment. So even they thought that, and Christopher Columbus, when he was over in Central America and Northern South America, he was in Venezuela looking for a high mountain that would be the Garden of Eden because of what they wrote. And what we found testifies that their guess was correct.
So, okay, so it's in Tanzania. We're putting a map up there right now. It looks like a Google map. And it's called the Land of Aden. And then in the Land of Aden, Brock, you can put that back up there. It looks to me like there's an area there that's recognized as what would be the Garden of Eden. It's still in Tanzania, but close to, I think that's close to another border here. I don't know if that's Kenya or who.
Kenya. That's Kenya, yes.
Okay. So to get there, I mean, this was a lifelong dream of yours. This was an exploration. What did you got to do to get there?
Say again?
What did you have to do to get there?
Spend 30 years researching it and get contacted by a couple of our listeners who said, we're going to fund this trip. We've got to go down there and prove that it's the Garden of Eden. And that happened earlier this year. And it took a lot of coercing on their part to get me to accept that because I didn't particularly want to go to Africa on a safari at my age. I felt like I'd done enough. But they convinced me we had to do it, and that's why we did it now. So
I take it anytime you go on these trips. I know when I went to India about a month ago, it was very difficult in the jungle with no running water and 106 degrees. And I mean, it was just brutal.
Yeah, yeah.
So, and I said to myself, they said, will you come back? And I said, I'll see you in America. Okay. I'm not making a promise this time. But yeah. I mean, so you're saying you had to go through the jungle, Tanzania. You're in northern Africa, and no doubt there's no roads driving there. This is that you're going to have to do some hiking here, right?
Yeah, there are dirt roads getting up to the rim of the crater, the Ngoro crater, which was the nest part of the Garden of Eden, where all the animals were that Adam named. But those roads are still dirt and red dirt, by the way, like the Adamic man, and to go to the Northern Highlands, it's not a normal thing on the map for tourists and stuff like that. We had to get permission from the conservancy that handles the Ngoro Conservancy. We had to have 2 armed rangers to go with us to protect us, not from terrorists or anything like that, but just from animals that might have seen us as lunch. And we drove maybe 25 miles from the Sopa Lodge, which is on the north side of the crater, up into the highlands. And from there, we had to park the Land Cruiser and go by foot, probably about a 3.5-4 mile round trip up to the water springs, and then back down to the road where we could get picked up again. So it was tough. I mean, I tell you what, I thought I'd prepared a bit, but made a fool of me. I'm telling you, it was tiring.
Yes. So now, so it was springs. It's springs of water. I mean. What was it like? I mean, how did it feel to you to get to these springs of water? It's like the water of life. I mean,
that's what the natives call it. It's the water of life for the Ngoro Plateau. The Maasai tribes call it that.
Really? They call it that.
They speak of it like that, but the name they give it is Kumanana, which means, is this the earring, literally? But it's a precious thing, and it's the life water for the whole plateau.
Wow. And so there's a lot of animals. I take it is there a lot of people around there? I mean, you can't really live up there.
Well, the Maasai live there, and there are several small tribes, villages around the periphery of that area. You won't see them except when they come to water their cattle and their livestock. Well, when you stand there yourself, you're at 9,630 feet, down below the 10,000 marker ridge. And if you look off to the northeast, you see the top of a mountain that they call today the Mountain of God. And the local name is called Old Doinyo. And it's been erupting for forever. It's back to the time of the Garden of Eden. It's a low temperature volcano, and you're overshadowed there when you stand there with your cattle and everything else by the Mountain of God. They come in the evening, at least. We saw them there when we came in the afternoon to water their cattle. And this is one of the things that I wanted to find out what was happening up there, because I used Google Earth and I looked over the top of the spot where the water should have been. And I started doing spot checks of the altitude, and I found that there was a perfect square formed at 9,630 feet. And then another foot out from that, another almost perfect square, and then it led to a rectangular series off to the northeast. And I couldn't figure out what made this. Was it the Germans in World War II who occupied the area, or what created this man-made shape? And it turns out that the Maasai told me that when it's a dry season and the water backs off a bit, they go and help the springs by digging deep in there to fill up the area. And they had made this square enclosure with a rectangular ramp for the cattle to go down and drink and then come back out. So that mystery was solved. But when we looked at it, in fact, if you could look, I don't know if you've got access to our show images page on the Hagman Show thing, if your producer does, if you look at images 83 and 84 on that, you'll see the first things that we saw as we came over the 10,000-foot ridge is kind of like a little bowl, and that's where all of these fountains came up, the fountains of water being pressured. Now, remember, the Earth was smaller then by 25% of current diameter, and gravity was 70 to 80% stronger, so that it compressed the water underneath the ground much harder than it would now. And so it took water, which now is in the Lake Victoria area to the west of there, and just forced it to gush up through these springs here. Even the Missouri and the Mississippi River come from a single spring, but this is multiple springs here at such an altitude that it's miraculous. I mean, it's just, look, when we walked over that ledge and saw for the first time there was water there and multiple sources of it there, it just, we were all quiet. The whole team, everybody just looked for a second, and we were just quiet because it was there. After 30 years, we were standing there.
It had, I would almost say, you felt the peace of God. Did you feel the peace of God?
We did. And in fact, two members of our team, Jared and Christina, asked me to baptize them right there in the rivers of Eden, waters of Eden.
Oh, so, I would have done that too. I would have absolutely said, me too.
Yeah. It's interesting because our guide there with Elion Tours is named Eli Rehema, and they were all Christian, even the rangers. And so, since it was Africa, since it was their territory, I asked him to cup up the water in his hands, pass it to me, and then I would anoint them as part of the baptism, so that we had Africa passing it to us, to them. It was a proper procedure, I think. And,
wow.
They were all grabbing their cell phones and taking pictures of this happening, because we had even a few Maasai. Believe it or not, the Maasai have cell phones in their red cloaks. But anyway, everyone was quite excited about it. And later, the next day, after we'd done this and proven this point, we were down in the south end of the plateau to the large 110 square mile area, circular crater, which was the Garden of Eden, and today is the Garden of Eden. And what we found there, you talk about the peace of the Lord, there was peace in there, just incredible peace between not only us, but also the animals. We saw lions laying around next to where antelope were grazing. Rhinos were in the middle of it, laying down, having a sun bath. Elephants were kind of going through the yellow daisies and having a bit of breakfast. It was so peaceful. We had to remark to the guy, and I said, look, there's wildebeest herds out here and zebra herds. Do they migrate like the rest of the wildebeest every year? Oh, no. No animal leaves here. They like it here. There's no reason to migrate because year-round it's a perfect place. And they get along with the lion because the lion only takes the sick, infirmed animals, and everybody seems to know that. So they take care of, the housekeeping there. Just an incredible, peaceful feeling.
Wow. I mean, are you serious? This is unbelievable. Stan, well, no, why would they run and look for other places to go when you're in the best, perfect? I mean, what's the temperatures there? I mean, are you saying 72 or something? I mean.
Oh, it's like maybe 85, in degrees, back and forth a little bit of that, but never gets too hot, never gets too cold. And in fact, it's very humid there, and the floor of the crater is just full of the grasses and flowers that they eat. It's very rich soil. In fact, while we were there, the rangers told us, look at this little area we fenced off over here, this little hill in the middle of the crater. It's called Ingatati Hill. We're doing research on why the grass grows so tall and luxuriantly here in this spot and in other spots here in the crater. It's a marvelous place for growing food. And the odd part about that was the hill, Ingatati Hill, was one of the places that we wanted to get to, but you're not allowed to go there without, a guard. They don't want a lot of people trampling on it. Well, this round hill is where I think the trees of knowledge and life were planted. And here's why. They remarked to us that the only that anywhere in the crater floor that you stand, with the exception of one little place over by a road that you come in by, anywhere you stand, you can see the top of Ingatati Hill in the crater. And if God had told Adam and Eve, see those trees over on that Ingatati Hill, do not eat the fruit of those, so that no matter where they were, they wouldn't accidentally get fruit from some tree. Those trees were elevated above everything else growing there. Do not go there. Do not eat the fruit of it. And we went up on the hill, and we found two rises on either side of it. One we couldn't get to because the floodwaters had ruined the road. And they said, we're not going to put you up on that side. Look at it from this side. So we got up on there, and we were standing on the edge of this hill, and I looked down, and I saw this ring of trees growing out of the side of the hill in a line going around with the strata of, the sediment that was there. And I said, what are these trees? And the guy said, oh, those are fig trees. What? What? Yeah. We were standing there where, Eve and Adam would surely have been, and there were the fig leaves right there that she could have sewn together something to make a skirt. And then I looked over to the road we came in down the rim on, and there's a river to the right of that, to the left of that, coming down to water the crater floor. And there were trees growing all in the river, on the riverbed sides, all the way down into the crater. I said, what are those trees? Well, those are fig trees too. So we had fig trees and we had acacia trees in the forest in the north and the south there of the crater. All the ingredients that we needed. A raised place where you could see that those are the trees you don't eat from. And then the fig leaf, the fig trees, and then the animals. So there's over 30,000 large animals still living there. I mean, the big five and smaller ones as well. We got so close to the lions that we're just being lazy there that, we could have gotten out, but the guide said, no, don't do that. Don't get out the cruiser here, but just hang out the window and take your pictures. We were something like 15 feet from a lioness and her cubs laying on an old dead tree and kind of just yawning and scratching the nose, whatever. You can just reach out. The elephants. We had an elephant within 10 feet of the window kind of having his breakfast there, and we took photos of him like crazy people. But it's just such a peaceful place. You can't imagine how peaceful it feels there.
This is unbelievable. Folks, this is Stan Deyo, of course. Stan Deyo, he has a website, www.standeyo.com. And that's what I like about you, Stan, because you cover the news, you cover different things going on in the world. You watch through a biblical lens, and you're an inventor. You're involved with all these products, and it's all of it is to help people. It's just incredible to me that you got a chance to go to this place, and for me, I was crawling around in the caves of where 7 people were buried in ossuaries. I much rather would have been at the Garden of Eden. What in the world? The jungles of India. What am I doing?
I don't think in that respect. No, we didn't have to crawl around in the graveyards, but we did walk in the graveyards in the Garden of Eden there, where the Toga chiefs are buried. But I tell people, look, the field part of it, we were out in the mountains and up in the forest on day trips. They were difficult physically, but when we came home to the Sopa Lodge on the north rim of the crater of the Garden of Eden, we had rooms there, like hotel rooms, and we could look out over the entire Garden of Eden in the morning when we got up, or in the afternoon when you're coming back. And we had 5-star luxury there. We had waiters and meals and in a fancy restaurant and a lounge, and people wouldn't realize that you could go there and have all these creature comforts, and then go out in the Land Rovers with your picnic lunch and your backpack and whatever, and go out and explore the Serengeti, explore the Olduvai Gorge, the Garden of Eden. These things were all within a few hours' reach every day. So I didn't have to rough it when we were back at the hotel. We had hot showers and everything.
And that's great. That is great. And it's pretty safe. The locals there are safe. You're not dealing with the what the Middle East is really into right now, and even Northern Africa with Somalia and stuff that's happening in Libya. So I mean, they're friendly there. These are natives. They're native people there.
They are friendly. In fact, all of us remarked how peaceful and friendly and smiley these people were. It's not like walking down the streets of New York where people are looking down or talking on their iPhone or just stern face. These people talk to you. They were friendly, and it wasn't because you were going to cross their palms with silver or anything. It was just hi, how you going? You want some of this coffee? Okay, fine. And can we help you? And they were just like that everywhere. Their neighboring countries are primarily like Kenya and Mozambique. They have problems with terrorists and Islamic terrorists particularly. And Tanzania has Islamic population, but they have a Christian president. For the last 2 years, he's been reorganizing that country into a Christian country. And so I want to do everything we can to help people get in there and support water production wells for those people, to help them to preserve that Christian remnant around the Garden of Eden. They are the keepers of the Garden of Eden and are surrounded by the evil empires of the terrorists around them. So this president, this new president down there, he's like Donald Trump. He's fired 1,500 people when he took office. He said, "You guys are on the take. Get out of my government. I'll put new people in," which he did. And then he said to the common people of Tanzania, "You've been taxed, and the rich have not been taxed at all, paid no taxes. That's going to change today. The rich are going to pay the tax just like you do." And so, as a popular Christian president, he gets my vote, I got to tell you. That country is going places. And Israel's in there at the moment, too, making trade deals with it.
That is so good. I mean, there's so many great things going on right now. It's like, when you read Joel 2, there's going to be volcanoes exploding. There's going to be wars and rumors of wars and sinkholes. There's all kinds of apocalyptic things happening. But also it talks about that the latter rain. It talks about the early and the latter rain and how everything's going to get restored. So you got to take a look at the whole picture. And it sounds like what's happening there in Tanzania with the new Christian president and all the things happening, preserving the Garden of Eden area. This is just amazing. We got to ask you a couple questions here. I mean,
okay.
Kim Jong-un, just the meeting in Singapore, President Trump, I mean, he did what no other president would even try to do. Just get it done. Just go meet with someone. Now, there's a lot to go here, and verification and breaking down these nukes and all of that. We talked with you the last time about EMPs, how that not only North Korea, but China and Russia and I'm sure other countries have the ability to detonate a nuke over our heads and fry our power grids. And, you've come up with this great product that can help protect your home and all your appliances so that if this happens, when the power gets back on, at least if you have a generator, you'll have something to work with. Do you feel more relieved now with the North Korea situation, or do you feel like this is just way too early?
Well, I think it's way too early to dismiss the threat of EMP attacks because I didn't ever think that Kim Jong-un had enough of the EMP-type nuclear weapons to reach us. I figured if they were in orbit, those two satellites he has coming over the United States, we could take those out quickly and avoid the EMP threat. But China and Russia are the real ones to watch. Wherever they are, whatever we're doing with them, that's where the threat's coming from. And I think the Middle East will be the key for Russia getting upset with us and wanting to take us out militarily, to allow Russia to have more ground in the Middle East and to go with their Arab allies to destroy Israel as a nation. Kim Jong-un, I think President Trump, being the negotiator he is, looked at the guy and had Pompeo go over and talk to him and assess him. And this is probably what went on in the back room in Trump's mind, President Trump's mind. Here's a little dictator guy. He can't hope to run the world, with his small little nation and threats. Why is he doing this? Why is he threatening the United States? Poking the U.S. in the eye with a stick. The the empire that could destroy him with a single blink. And it finally probably dawned on President Trump that this guy wants something, but he doesn't want to control the world. He wants to have a lot of the luxuries we've got in this country, the rest of the world, the developed world. And he doesn't want to get assassinated by his own people. So he wants some kind of a deal. So he threatens the United States with war, knowing that if you make a deal with the United States over war or threat of war, you're going to come out a winner as far as finances and industry and trade. So I found it rather telling that the young fellow caved so quickly in the discussions with President Trump. President Trump's team did prepare a couple of videos to show Kim Jong-un, if you go down the path of war, this is what will happen to you, and you will probably be assassinated by your own people, if not by us in the war. But if you agree with us and trade, you're going to have all these goodies. You're going to have hotels and businesses and trade, and you'll get along with South Korea, and life will be wonderful. And I don't think it took much persuasion after that point for Kim Jong-un to say, okay, let's talk a deal, because he knows that he can't avoid the assassination of his own country if things progress as they have been. He's got to do something to feed these people and to let them have some of the luxuries that they see on the internet in their country that other countries have. So I think it has served a purpose. It is certainly good that President Trump has seen and called this guy's bluff. And there will, I think, be a peaceful negotiation between North and South Korea, and that area there will not have to be guarded so much. I would hope not anyway, because we need our military forces, naval forces over in the Middle East, because that's going to be the theater of activity for the next 7 to 10 years, I think. I think we're close to the tribulation period, is why I say that. And we see things happening over with Syria and Iran and Russia being in Syria. And the situation is extremely tense. And this has taken our mind off of it, looking at the North Korean situation. But the real threat is going to be to the United States from Russia, because Russia doesn't want us to defend Israel. And to achieve that, they're going to have to weaken us as a country and as a military force here at home, where everything happens. So the need for an EMP shield for your auxiliary power supplies you've got, and just for your things in your house, is growing. As we speak, you know this, you were in Israel. The things with the Palestinians, that the peace agreement is in the works in the background. Kushner's in there, Prince Mohammed bin Salman's in there, President Trump's negotiators, Kushner, of course. And they are trying to bring a peace agreement between the Palestinians and Israel and several surrounding nations. Now, if that does happen, that could well be the treaty or the covenant that Daniel speaks of, that the Antichrist will ratify. He doesn't make the covenant, but he'll ratify and say, yeah, that's good. And the reason I think this will happen with Mohammed bin Salman involved is he's already offered the Palestinians hundreds of billions of dollars and relocation to a land they can call their own, or into their own Arab native countries, to solve the problem for them, to give them the resources they need. So in essence, he has the money and the authority to give it to them to make these things happen. And he will then say, yeah, the treaty between Israel and you, that's good. It's not a treaty between him and them. He'll say, yeah, I think it's a good deal. Let's go for it. So he could be the Middle East Antichrist, as some of us think is coming.
Yeah, you're bringing up the Saudi crown prince, Mohammed bin Salman. I mean, he went over here. He met with the president. He met with our congressman. He met with 50 rabbis in New York. He went and met with the CEOs of Silicon Valley. He wants to revolutionize his own country. He really wants to more modernize it, let women drive cars and do different things that they haven't been able to do. So he wants to bring a new brand of Islam to his own country. And to your point, the Palestinian people, I was just there, and one of the things they're talking about there, Jared Kushner's been in the Middle East probably 20, and no more than that, close to 40 times with Jason Greenblatt. And then they're bouncing around next week in Saudi Arabia and Egypt and Israel. The thing is, there's talk that they might allow the Palestinians that live in Gaza to become also Egyptian citizens. And they're also talking about that the Palestinians that live in the West Bank to also give them dual citizenship with Jordan. So that is actually being discussed. You brought out a great point, though, a point you're saying that bin Salman's got land and the money that could actually just give them their area?
Yeah, yeah.
Is that in Saudi Arabia?
I think it will be, but he may have other agreements because he's got 39 other Arab nations in a consortium with him, in a joint military consortium against Iran. So there may be other countries in the area that will help him by giving land. The Palestinians are a small people. They're not a country. They're a small people, right?
Right.
And in the Bible, it does say that the Antichrist will come to power with the help of a small people.
Yes, it does. It does say that. It really does. It says a small people will draw them out. You can read it right there in Daniel chapter 11. You're right.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
chapter 11 is very interesting in a lot of ways.
Yes, it is. It is. And so, okay, so this is really the next big deal that's coming. There's no question about it. And I agree with you. Trump has got the North Korea thing right where he wants it. They're going to work that. Now he's going to focus on Iran. But as he focuses on Iran, he's focusing also. He's had Kirshner the whole time working on this Middle East covenant with many, trying to get this thing done. And like you said, the Antichrist is the one that confirms the covenant. He blesses it, I guess, or has the final blessing on it. And we do have to keep an eye on Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman because he's 32 years old. I mean, he's the right age for the right time. This is unbelievable, really. Just keep a close eye. Stan, you've got really, this product you have that people can get their hands on. And folks, you can buy this unit to put on your at your house to protect you. Tell them about the product and why it's so important.
All right, Paul. A lot of people, I guess, are called preppers who've tried to prepare for the time when we would lose Maine's power and civilization would be kind of in a state of chaos from invasion or war or whatever. And so people have stocked away food, medicine, that kind of stuff. But a number have also been able to afford solar backup power systems. When the mains go down, when the grid goes down, they would have their own power, or diesel or gasoline generators they've got. But none of them had protection for these things from an EMP strike. What good is it to have these inverters and these DC and AC power systems if you don't protect them from an EMP shortout? So people that have these, they need to pay attention to this because they won't be able to use their backup power without an EMP shield to divert the huge voltages that will surge through it in the case of an EMP attack over the country. And there's only one EMP bomb has to be released at 230 to 320 miles up that altitude, and it will destroy probably 90% of the electrical devices underneath that in the line of sight. That it'll raise the voltage on them very quickly in about a billionth of a second or so. And so we've made a device, Tim and I, to take that sudden increase in voltage to see it coming before it can rise up and to prepare your fuse box at your house or your connections on your auxiliary power and take that huge surge of voltage down to ground through copper rods. And it only takes, a local electrician or people that are skilled in the art to cook 4 wires into your fuse box or into your circuit breaker box over 2 phases. That takes care of your house, and everything in the house that's plugged into it will be shielded, into the power sockets, will be shielded from an EMP pulse. And for multiple pulses. This isn't like the old ones that the military used where one pulse fried it. Ours can be used 30 or 40 times, for 30 or 40 EMP pulses, whether from the sun or from nukes or whatever, and still protect what's in your house plugged into it. But if you have a computer that's not plugged into it in the house or somewhere, close, that may not survive, where it has to be plugged into a power supply and into your mains for that protection to work. But you can get what's called Faraday bags to put your computers and small appliances in like that if they're not going to be plugged in. But you must protect your auxiliary power supplies so that the power that you generate from whatever you've got can be shared with not only yourself but your neighbors to rebuild community for those that survive an EMP attack here. We're going to be hurt really bad. I think we're probably the Babylon of this age, and in 1 hour our country's going to burn, and there's going to be horrendous attacks. But there will be survivors from it, and there will be cities of refuge formed by people who have power power will be the unifying factor other than knowledge. So it is very important, I think, for people to try to protect as many high-tech devices as we can for communications and calculations we'll need for building stuff again to rebuild. And I think there will be a spot in America, probably here in the eastern side of the Rockies, the Front Range, where there will be a collection of a number of villages which will have power and people of like mind collecting together to rebuild what is left of America. It won't be the same, but to rebuild a small nation.
You know, it's amazing, but you have the vision and the foresight to recognize what if actually happens, whether it's another Carrington episode that we had in the 1800s where a solar flare literally fries. Of course, good thing then, we didn't have the infrastructure we have now. But to your point is, folks, if you get the unit and you have it installed on your breaker box, everything that's plugged in to the sockets that's connected will be shielded. And you say, well, okay, this is huge. Because if you have a generator, what good is a generator if you fire it up and every appliance and everything in your home is been fried? Nothing works. So this is the protection. And then if you have power, and like you're saying, Stan, if there's a few homes in your neighborhood where there are people who were shielded, protected, and there can be power generated and actually appliances at work, it can literally be life or death. And we do not have a clue what would happen in a major city, let's say like Chicago or New York, if there was no power. Folks, within 3 days, it would be absolute beyond chaos. It'd be ravaging people looking for food and water, wouldn't they, Stan?
Well, not only that, Paul, when an EMP strike occurs, the damage it does to the grid will cause large electrical fires, from the burst transformer boxes and stuff on the poles, the high power lines. They will short out to ground. And if it were to happen in a year like this, where so much of it is dry, the ground and the grass, it would start fires all over the country almost immediately. And we wouldn't be able to put them out, and you'd have fires, smoke, chaos, gangs, looting. So it's a good idea to be in smaller communities away from the major cities like Chicago and New York, because they are going to be very problematic. But again, as I say, preserve your auxiliary power supplies, protect them against shorts to them, and also the things that we will need to run off of that. There are a number of ways to protect, larger things like other generators that aren't plugged in and aren't going to be plugged in for a while, or cars. Most cars are going to be shielded just naturally by the way they're grounded internally, but we do have a device, a version of our device that will look across the poles of your battery in your car. If you're concerned about your car being in the 30% or less that are going to be potentially damaged, we can put an EMP shield on your car, a direct current one.
Oh,
so
really?
we've thought of all these things.
So you have that available also. Folks, you go to his website, www.standeyo.com. That's www.standeyo.com. And check out all of his products. And so you have one for the cars also.
Yes, and the same kind. It's a direct current type thing, like a battery type connection. If you go to our website and scroll down about, maybe half a page, you'll see EMP shield, nuclear EMPs, solar EMPs, how we protect your home. And it says protect your home and business from EMP. And you can click on our picture and go to our main website, and it will help you see what kinds you would need for your house. If you're in Europe or for other countries or the United States, we take you through which of our units you would need to get. And it makes it easy just by looking at the plugs in your wall and how the holes are shaped. We can guide you to what you need for your home. This is just as easy as we can make it, and it's a simple thing, just hooking in 4 wires into an existing utility box. And then for the auxiliary power supplies like solar panels and other things like that, you may need to put an 8-foot copper ground rod like you use in building homes right next to that and hook that up to one of our devices that's made for that. We have at least 30 models in production at the moment. So,
and you also help the people with installation. I mean, so if folks that are watching, if you want to get one of these units, go to Stan Deyo's website, make the phone call, let them walk you through the correct device you need, and they'll help you with the installation process. You probably should have an electrician come in and do it. A lot of you can do it yourself, but they'll walk you through this. And just this of all the things you hear people do, preparing for catastrophes and of everything there is, having power will make the difference, life or death, for so many people. So I think, see, God, did you know the Bible says that it's the Lord that gives us witty inventions? Witty inventions come from the Lord. And we have to have, this is why the body of Christ has to have people in different capacities who can do different things. Because if you read this Bible, you will know there is days that are coming that are going to be very, very difficult for the human race as we get winding down, and you want to be prepared. I mean, we're all headed to paradise, but we're not there yet. I mean, you might have got a glimpse of it while you were there, Stan, but most of us haven't.
One thing I wanted to add to this about the sun, we kind of glossed over this, but the sun could release an EMP any tick of the clock. Okay, it's not going to happen in 10 years or 5 minutes. We don't know when, but the sun is unstable. And since 1992, we've known that the nuclear equation, the nuclear chemistry of the sun has been changing. And it's getting to a point where we may see the sun eject a large hot dust cloud around it, all the way around it, which will pass through the solar system past Earth. We know that in Revelation, the scripture does say that there will be 1/3 of the Earth's green grass and animals and fish and everything that will fry. They will die in a burst of energy from the sun. Now, that has to be a quick burst. And what I'm suggesting would be quick as it passed by us. At any one point in time, if you look at the area of the Earth that is illuminated by the sun, it's not 50% of the Earth. It's about 33 to 35% that gets direct radiation. The rest is kind of glancing blows. So it's that 33% or 1/3 that would get fried. So whatever side of the planet is facing the sun when this happens, you can just about kiss that area goodbye. Yeah, hopefully it'll be over the Pacific Ocean, and only damage minimally some of the coastal regions of Indonesia and China and the United States, or maybe even down the South Pole if we tilt a bit. Anyway, this is a clear and present danger. The sun is acting strangely according to the old models we had, probably doing exactly what the Lord planned, but we're just catching up with the plan at the moment, and there's nothing we can do to stop that. It's not a negotiated political thing. It is something that God put in place, and it's going to come to pass, and we need to be prepared for that. It's going to get hot like that, and that's why the whole planet's going to get hot after that eruption or whatever happens from the sun, because it's going to heat the atmosphere, it's going to heat the waters, and there will be a period of very muggy, hot weather around the entire planet for weeks and months after that. You're still going to need power, and that's why we've got to preserve as much as we can. That's why the scripture says that the men of the earth, when that happens, will say, get me in a tunnel, throw rocks on top of me in a cave, protect me from the wrath of the Almighty, which is that sun and the energy coming from it at that moment when it heats up the planet.
Wow. I mean, that's really powerful. It's right out of Revelation. They'll be in Revelation 6, they'll be crying for the rocks and mountains to hide them from the face of him. That's right. From the wrath of the Lamb. And so when we look at where we're going now, when we look at some of the scriptures and we look at some of the events taking place, there's one question I have for you, because this is blowing my mind. On Mars, there's a dust storm there that is so unbelievable that, I mean, we're not talking about it's not like we have on Earth. They're saying that if it continues what it's doing, the entire face of the globe, the entire planet, will turn from red to yellow from the dust. The dust storm is massive. I mean, they're saying it's already put a little bit of a yellow tint. The rover that we have there is buried. We can't find it. It's probably can't get no more sunlight. It's probably battery dead. It's really crazy. What's causing that, Stan? Is that from the sun also?
My kind of partially educated guess would be yes, because we know that the other planets of our solar system have been heating up over the last 2 or 3 decades that we can check on, and it's a result of the sun. It's not a result of cow gas or human activity. We're all getting heated up from the sun's extra light output in various frequencies, especially in the ultraviolet. which is kind of the blue-white area. If you've looked at the sun kind of indirectly or sunlight nowadays, you'll see that it's kind of more of a cleaner yellow, like a bluey yellow, whiter than it was when we were kids. You had gold in the sunshine. Well, that extra whiteness is coming from the ultraviolet frequencies that have been coming since, well, we discovered it in 92, but it's been coming and increasing since then. So maybe this is happening on Mars. The increased energy input does create wind energies, wind systems. It's responsible for our hurricanes on our planet, and I'm sure that it has the same effect on the atmospheres of the other planets. The moons may not be that way if they don't have an atmosphere, but Mars does have a thin atmosphere that's very volatile. So the dust storms, I think, are probably a direct result of solar irradiance increasing.
So that's huge, folks. That is huge. And that's just another confirmation that, we need to protect ourselves the best we can. And so go to his website, go to www.standeyo.com and check out all the information that he has there. And I'm sure they'll help you and work with you to get one installed. Stan, we're out of time, man. We could talk probably for 4 or 5 hours. But I really appreciate you coming on and being with us today. It's been a great discussion, and I can tell by the large crowd of folks gathering that people are really learning and being educated to the realization of the things that are happening in the world. Thank you for coming on and being with us.
Thank you, Paul. Appreciate it. Lord bless you now.
God bless. And folks, we'll be back next time right here on The Coming Apocalypse.